Hello, everyone. Hey, there's a way bigger crowd than most chicken councils can get. Yeah, okay, I've done this quite a few times. But first of all, I'll give you a little bit of my background so that you understand that, hey, and maybe I do know what I'm talking about. I was in politics quite a few years, but before that, I did a lot of land claims. I worked in Ontario, and I think I got about 60 of them are all settled today. I probably worked on about 400 different kinds of situations over a number of years. I spent months and months in the National Archives, learning about things, learning about how some of this stuff happened, why it happened, and it also gave me, one thing it did is give me a background on what really was Aboriginal rights, what was treaty rights. So I learned all about that, and of course I did. But I was also a very aggressive individual while I was at the Union. Well, an easy one is when you pull out your status card, you get all the provincial sales tax free. We did that way back in '76. So everybody knew me from that. But I also learned the whole interrogation of leadership. I was a very aggressive individual, and I've worked with lawyers for years and years, and I was always the boss, and I always made the final decision. Sometimes they don't go far enough. But in any event, that's my background for understanding Aboriginal treaty rights, and of course then the opportunity came to put it in the National Constitution. I was only a provincial leader when I started to work on it, and because of my background, and of course I interacted with other national leaders across the country, and soon found out that this was somebody, there's something not many had any kind of experience at or knowledge of, and it was going to be very difficult to maybe put something forth. In my idea at the time to put something forth meant that we wanted our rights recognized in the highest law of the land, the Constitution. And a lot of times when you get finally do get started to get the okay, I think it was even a year before, finally got the okay that, yeah, hey, you could participate with the committee on drafting some of the things that affect you. But it's really difficult to get that national support and keep it. But I was able to bring the Métis in and the Inuit. But we did all the work. It was all done by us. And we also put together all the wording in section 35 and 25. And we were going to make it so tough, so strong, that there's no judge, no caucasoid opinion. And that's just a thing I use anymore. It's more kind of a joke. They call me an Indian, and I call them caucasoids. That's a white man's.
It's a real word.
Yeah. But I mean, that's it for that there. Well, in any event, I probably did a lot of promotion that time, and leadership or national leadership, or national leadership came up at the NIB, the National Indian Brotherhood at the time. And, of course, I'm trying to get all of the, what I think the brightest minds in Canada interested so they could run and get us protected in the Constitution. But nobody wanted to really run. I said, well, if you're not going to run, at least support me. I said, I'll get us in there. Okay, and well, of course, I didn't know if I could or not, but I was going to give it the old royal try. In any event, whether it was my speech was on that I would get us in the Constitution. That was all I wanted to do, really get us in the Constitution. And luckily, or whatever, I got elected. So that's a job I set about for a couple of years. I just went at it. I probably met I met 3 different prime ministers during the process, every cabinet minister, every MP probably several times. And to try to ensure things, I opened an office in England. And we called it a treaty office, but really it was a diplomatic office because we lobbied around the world. And that was the intention. I never did go over there to meet the Queen. No intention. Well, I'll tell you what I did do though. I took my wife at the time. After we walked over to Buckingham Palace and lit up a joint and saluted the Queen. But finally one time, the discussions were really going hard and heavy in Canadian Parliament, and they finally called me in. Christian comes up to me. This was 11th hour now. Christian comes up to me. Says, Dell. He said, "Can I talk to you?" So we went out in the hall and where nobody was. And he says, "Hey, if you will close your office in England, we'll give you your protection for Aboriginal treaty rights." I said, "Put it there." We shook hands on it. And that's when government, the obligation of the Crown came in. And, there's always a lot of politics in this. And they were trying to pull it out. I remember the Minister of Indian Affairs at the time. He come to me because they were getting all sorts of backlash from provinces, especially Alberta, and they wanted that out of there because they didn't want Indians having anything to do with Indian-owned resources. So they fought against it. And finally, the Indian Affairs Minister came to me, he called me over to lunch. He presented me with the paper, said, Dell, we decided to take it out. This is what we're going to use instead. I looked at him, I rolled it up in a ball, and I threw it at him. And I walked out. And I said, okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to call it a national meeting. And I did. I had 10,000 people show up. It was the biggest group I've ever spoken to, but we eventually got it in. They did push in one word, but that only word was it helped us in a subsequent case. And so now it was the important thing of just those words. There is a definition, and we all did it. I don't get a chance to tell too many people this. It's hanging up on the wall in the AFN office, and it's signed by the national head of they had a National Chiefs Organization at the time, signed by him and myself. And we had all the elders, everybody from across the country. And the important thing of it is that it's part of section 35 and 25, but it represents, and I always hate to use this word, the religious aspect of our traditional governments. And so that also makes it, should have the protection of religion, your section 35 and 25. And what does it mean? I'm not going to be able to go into a lot of that, but what I will tell you people is that, of course, with my background, I know about your treaties and that. You're actually in a hell of a good position here because you see the Royal Proclamation said the government had to buy the land from you. How much did they buy from you? Huh? What was that receipt of what they bought from you? Bet you can't find it. Okay, you've still got a lot of problems to resolve. Then the next question is, well, what does average and treaty rights are together now? Does that represent all your resources? Well, it had to, because there's nobody else here except you. And that's yours. And those are the same words as Tecumseh had in 1814, well, before 1814. But finally, when we defeated the Americans, Chippewas on the, or Ojibwe on the Thames, Iroquois at Niagara, and Montreal. But at that particular moment in time, there wasn't many other bodies around. I was told, well, I know 600 British soldiers gave themselves up to the Americans. And as I add to that, and it's probably true, they could get a free ride back to England on empty slave ships. Remember, England brought about 4 million slaves over at the time. They were doing heavy trading in slaves. So that probably happened. And then I know in our area, the British General Proctor, decided to retreat. And he did. Took all these soldiers, headed to Ottawa or Montreal. And he was actually tried for cowardice. But in any event, it was the Indians that stayed and fought and established what we have here. And I say in 1814, you had eminent domain, total eminent domain. As the borders were established. And okay, there's a lot of problems we have. We had this regime that got set up called the V&A Act, and it, unfortunately, it's an extremely racist document, and with its intentions of setting up a system so that they get easy access to your resources and not have to pay you. So part of that regime was to introduce their Apartheid Act, the Racist Indian Act, which is still in place today, which makes a joke of the Truth and Reconciliation. That's even in South Africa, they got rid of the racist law there. Canada, unfortunately, kept it. So I don't have a lot of praise for this reconciliation nonsense they got out there, and still maintain their racist Indian Act. So in any event, they kept going with this John A. Macdonald kinds of races. In 1884, John A. Macdonald decided, well, hey, we got to tax all these Indians. And the way we're gonna do that though is, we're gonna put on, we'll get rid of their traditional chiefs. And we'll put it in our own Indian Act chiefs and councils. And 8 years after they did 1892, yeah, they did exactly that. Put in all the Indian Act chiefs and councils with the voting, and of course, you know, the turmoil is all over the place with voting. And I'm saying it's here too, but it's all over. And so we weren't able to do anything because of the way the Indian Act was written. And some aspects of it are that it follows the Papal Bulls of 1493, and then that they said any brown-skinned people any place in the world, because Columbus had been over here, there were other lands, and he got word back to the popes back at that time to issue a statement that gives them the right to come over and take all the wealth here. So they issued these papal bulls, and today that's called the Doctrine of Discovery. So all the colonist nations follow that, and it's a reason today even you know, your Indian Act follows a lot of those principles in the in those papal bull statements. In that you own all your land, only in general. That's Doctrine of Discovery nonsense. That wasn't the way it really was. But you know, again, the Indian Act has been imposed on us, and we've lost a lot of resources. But I think the time is we can at least sit down and get a lot of those issues, because they are issues, whether legal or social, we can get them resolved because we own the land and the resources. And I know they're gonna fight us. They fought us like crazy all over the place now with the Indian Act. Where they spend 120 million a year fighting against our rights. And but we can win this one. Okay, here's a problem that the current Indian Act people, Indian Act chiefs and council, and I don't have any issue with them. Where they are is not their fault. So, and I don't want anybody to blame them for the situation that they're in. And the biggest problem, John A. MacDonald didn't want to give him any power, so he didn't give him any authority. And he said, well, maybe someday when we get them into the municipality, we'll up the authority a little bit and pay taxes. So that's what you see out there now. A lot of proposals of Indian government proposals like got going around the country. And you can give away your land with 25% of the vote. And that's in it. But you know, you've got all of these problems with the Indian Act, and another problem with it is that because it's a federal document, and the real one responsible for it is the Minister of Indian Affairs, all of the sections in it that describe your chief and council, whatever else, lands, that is contained in the Act. And it is not your rights. That doesn't affect your rights, or it shouldn't even affect your land. They did. They pulled a fast one and put the surrender sections in on you. But that's just parts of the problem of the Indian Act. Oh, hey, I'm writing a book, And, well, I'm not writing it. I've written it, and it explains a lot of, 10 times as much as what I told you so far. And my next one, it's going to be, I'm going to write it on the Indian Act and racism. And I'm going to have a blast writing that racism one. But yeah, if you want to lead through this, you, but anyway, that's a chief and council with no authority. That don't sound right, does it? And it don't sound right even to them. And the problem is most of them have never read the Indian Act, and or had to explain to them what it really is. Not by a lawyer, but by somebody that knows the social impacts of it. And I used to teach the Indian Act, and so I know it inside out. And it's wrong. It is a horrific racial document that's put our people in this residential school trauma today that we're, trying to get out somehow. And this is just a little part of the fight. So, but I need hopefully I can get the information to chiefs and councils, because a lot of decisions have to be made in the future. And good ones.
I hope this moves to the residential school, that Sir John A. McDonald was the one that initiated the government in the funding of all residential schools starting in 1929.
Yep.
That lasted to 1996.
Yeah, the last one, yeah. Well, hey, let me just mention this. I did 5 years in residential school, and I'm gonna tell you what happened, how I got in there.
What school was it?
It was they called it the Mohawk Institute at the time, but it was we called it the Mushahoe, but it was the one in Brantford. And
My mother was the late Moore of Bernard, the native activist who spearheaded the largest class action suit in Canadian history.
yeah.
Who they tried to forget.
Yeah, well, here's what happened to me. It's going to take me a couple minutes to finish this one. Here's what happened to me and my family. I think around 1950 or just before 1950, I was in sanatorium in Byron, and my mother was in, and one of my other sisters, and we all had TB. And my mother died there, and then they moved us out. And next thing I knew, I was at my house, but along came the RCMP and the Indian agent, and they decided that I guess my family had to go to residential school. But I always remember, the words of my dad's wife at the time, and they'd both been in residential school, and we had 8 kids there, and she just come running up screaming, you ain't touching my fucking kids. And but they did, my dad had to still look after, she was able to save 3, and still had to look after those 3, so, or face 6 months in jail. That's what they threatened him with.
It's a long, hard road for our people, and I believe
Well,
that,
it's sometimes a little bit tough to.
knowledge
Yeah.
is unspeakable.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Tom to get up and do a little presentation on the cannabis situation currently we have.
Thank you, Doug.